How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Josh here with Buckeye Bowhunter. I'm super excited today about this video. This is going to be the 5th video in my Beginners 101 turkey hunting series that I've been doing over the last month. And it's going to be about calling. I'm going to dive into all the types of calls and show you how to do some of the most common types of calls, or the ones that you're going to want to know how to do with each of those calls. And I'll try and do my best. I'm not like a professional caller or anything, but I can kind of hold my own. So with that said, let's kind of dive right in and we'll get started here. So I'll just start by saying one of the coolest parts about turkey hunting is calling turkeys. It's the fact that you're out there kind of directly interacting with these animals while you're hunting them, calling to them, talking to them, and getting them to react based on what you're doing. That differs from a lot of other type of hunting. Deer hunting, you can get some of that, but it's not as prevalent as you would find in turkey hunting. And if you talk to a lot of people, everybody has their opinion on what the best calls are to use and how to call and when to call and all that stuff. I'm going to start out today just talking about the different types of calls and the types of calls I'm using, and kind of show you how to use those, and then I'll kind of dive into like actual turkey sounds and how to make those specific sounds. First on the list is the pot call. The pot call is probably my favorite call there is, and I would say it's probably one of the easiest to use. I'd say this is a beginner call. It's probably one you could pick up and be pretty good at within a couple days. If you don't have a turkey call yet for this season, go pick one of these up, and by next Saturday on the 23rd, you should be able to run it effectively enough to kill a bird. And the way pot calls work is they have some sort of medium, glass, slate, ceramic, some kind of material that makes up this surface that you're going to take one of these, this is called a striker, and rub against it and make a turkey noise. This is a triple toe turkey call, the Rendivius. This is actually a waterproof call. On the top part, this is made of some kind of waterproof material. Sounds pretty good. Make all kinds of turkey sounds with this. And on the back side, it's actually got a slate call, which gives you a little bit different tone. Which I guess is something I can talk about now. When you're calling turkeys, you might wonder, why can't you just have one call and go into the woods? You totally can. You can totally kill a bird, take one call into the woods, and be successful. But I will say every type of turkey call I'm going to go over today kind of has its place and when you can utilize it. Sometimes turkeys are really finicky and they'll like the sound of this call and they won't like the sound of another call. One day they might gobble at a slate call and the next day they might not. So it kind of can help you to have multiple different types of calls that give you multiple different tones and pitches, and you can kind of tailor it to what that bird is responding to at that given time, and help you be more successful. But like I said, you could definitely just carry one call in the woods. I would recommend a pot call, and you could definitely be successful. But here's one example of a pot call, like I said, in a striker. I'll pull out another pot call I got here. This is one by Windy Hill Game Calls. I don't even know where I bought this a long time ago, but this is a glass call. As you can see, a glass call is going to be a little louder, a little higher pitched. You can do every type of call you want on glass, slate, anything. But like I said, they're going to give you a little different pitch, a little different tone to maybe get that bird to react. Before we move on to the next type of call, I will say pot calls are really awesome, but they do take a little bit of maintenance, something they call conditioning. And that's where you're going to scuff up the surface to give that friction, that pot call, friction call, to give it that friction to make the actual turkey noise. And that's where something like this comes in. And this is just like a conditioning tool that I use to condition my calls. And what this comes with is a stone for like glass, and then it comes with several different types of sandpaper with different grits and a scratch pad for slate. So this little conditioning tool will take care of every type of pot call that I own. So if I want to condition this slate, I can pull out this little Scotch-Brite pad, give it a couple passes back and forth. And a little tip when you're conditioning a call, I just want to say, make sure that you're conditioning in like straight lines, back and forth, back and forth. You don't want to really condition it in circles and stuff. So what happens is when you condition the call with, you know, straight lines across the surface of the slate here, you're going to drag your striker perpendicular to those scratch lines. And that's where you're going to get that really nice friction, making those really nice turkey noises. Super useful, super variable. You can get all kinds of different pot calls, all types of different sounds. If you wanted to just carry 2 or 3 different pot calls, that's one thing I will say, is sometimes it helps to carry different types of strikers. So this is a triple toe walnut striker with a flared head, and then this is like a walnut striker that has a more rounded tip, and the different densities of these woods and the different shapes of the tips will actually give you different tones on the same call. So let's see if we can make that happen. I got my glass call here. I'm actually gonna take my stone for this glass and condition this call up. You can see there how my lines are going straight back and forth across the surface of the glass. And when I drag this striker across, I'm gonna go perpendicular. So let's listen to the walnut striker first. All right. Now let's listen to the cherry striker. So there is a little bit of a difference there. And sometimes that could be all it takes to get a bird to gobble, just by switching up strikers. So you could carry one call in 2 or 3 different strikers and have a couple different sounds at your disposal. That would definitely get the job done, in my opinion. Let's move on to the next type of call, and that is a box call. So I got a couple different box calls here. This one right here in my left hand is a Lynch Longbeard turkey call, model number 150. I've had this for probably 15 years, and I still run this call. This one here is a Primo's box cutter. You can get this at Walmart or, you know, anywhere that sells turkey calls. This is a really common call, makes really good noises. I've used this in the past. I don't really carry this one with me anymore, but I'll play both of these and show you the differences. Box calls, in my opinion, you know, out west, I feel like they're utilized a lot more. Box calls are really loud. I end up using them more as like a locator call. You know, if it's 11 noon or something like that, really windy day, get up on a big hilltop, let out a couple yelps with a box call. I don't really use this as a call if I'm like calling in the morning to turkeys or anything like that, just because it is so loud. I'm not that great with them though. I know guys like Michael Waddell like use only a box call. They're big box call guys and they're really good at it. I do carry one with me just for those instances if I want to try and locate a bird on a windy day or something like that. Box calls are like, if you want to romanticize turkey hunting, this is where it all started. You know, this is like the most traditional call in my opinion. They're really cool, believe it or not. And the way they work is you got a paddle here and then you have a box. It's hollow. And this one I believe is probably some kind of poplar, but you can see the box is kind of rounded here on the top, and by rubbing the paddle against that is what's giving you that turkey noise. Now, as a common theme with turkey calls, this takes a little bit of maintenance as well, or conditioning. But instead of scratching it up, what you're gonna do is add chalk. And my little Night and Hail conditioning tool here actually has a little spot to keep chalk. You see I barely got any. All you're gonna do is take some chalk here, you're gonna rub it on the paddle where it's gonna contact the actual box. And what that chalk's gonna do is help you get that really good sound and create that friction between the paddle and the box. So last thing about this Lynch is this is a 2-sided box call, which you'll see is different from the Primo's box cutter right here. The Primo's box cutter only has one side that's playable. The other side actually has these thumb rests to help you actually do cutting noises, turkey cuts. Put a little bit of chalk on this before I play it. I haven't played this thing in 3 or 4 years. You see that's a really kind of higher pitched, kind of really loud yelp there. But what these thumb holes are for, you can rest your thumb in here. So that's kind of a cool little feature on this thing. But like I said, I don't really run this box too much, but definitely an option for you. With that said, let's move on to probably the call that I use the most. So this right here is probably one of the most effective turkey calls ever made, and that's a diaphragm or a mouth call. Now, all a diaphragm is are several pieces of cut latex reed spread across a frame that you can put in your mouth and blow air over. And these calls, as you can probably guess, are really awesome because they allow you to make turkey sounds hands-free. So if you're set up at a tree and you got a bird within 15-20 yards and you're trying to get him to pop his head up or trying to get him to move a little bit, this is the call to use. It's really hard to, you know, put your gun down, pick up your pot call, make a couple calls, and then pick your gun back up. Where something like this, you're able to actually make calls without having to use your hands. You can hold your gun and keep it ready. Diaphragm calls, it's kind of hard to teach you how to use them. They're really... It's really just takes practice, and it's kind of the best way I can explain it is usually these diaphragm calls are going to have a solid latex reed on the bottom and then a cut latex reed on the top. This is like an offset bat wing cut, they call it, I think. And what you're going to do is you're going to put it in your mouth with the cut part up, with the cut piece of latex up, and you're going to push it up against the roof of your mouth, and using your tongue you're going to blow air over it. So that is a diaphragm call. Super cool. And like I said, this can take a lot of practice. It took me a long time to get pretty decent using these. Buy a couple and, you know, keep a couple in your car and practice all day while you're working or whatever. If you get an opportunity to practice, try not to drive your family and your wife or girlfriend crazy with them. So one piece of advice I will give you is if you're anything like me, if you find a diaphragm call that you can run well and you like, buy a bunch of them. Because if you're anything like me, you will lose these all the time. They're super easy to lose. If you're sitting at the base of a tree, I tend to a lot of times, I'll take them out of my mouth and set it on my thigh or something, and I'll forget it's there, and I'll get up and it'll fall and disappear in the leaves. So buy a couple of these. But yeah, that's the diaphragm call. All right, so those are probably the 3 most common types of calls. Those are the only 3 that I carry on me. I'll carry several different types of diaphragms. I'll carry several different pot calls. I'll carry that longbeard box call with me, but that's usually enough to get me through a turkey hunt or through a couple days turkey hunting. Now there's several other kinds of turkey calls out there. You got push buttons, wing bone calls. I'm not going to get into all those because I don't really use them and I'm not very familiar with them, but just so you know, there are other options out there besides what I've shown you here today. But the last type of call that I want to get into is kind of different, and I've touched on it a little bit in previous videos, and that's locator calls. Locator calls are kind of a weird one because you're emulating the sound of another type of animal to get a bird, to get a gobbler or a tom to shock gobble. And the one I'm going to start out with today is the crow call. The crow call is probably one of the staples in the locator call lineup that I use. I'm going to use this, you know, midday, late morning, something like that, when it's quiet out and I think I can get a bird to shock gobble. I'm going to blow this locator call, blow this crow call, and hopefully he'll gobble at it. In my opinion, when it comes to locator calls, sounding as realistic as possible is not as important as getting a turkey to gobble. And oftentimes that means making the call, you know, very loud or shrill or staccato and quick. to kind of break up the silence and break up, you know, the noise of the woods and get that bird to shot gobble at them. You know, we've talked about it before. A lot of times turkeys will gobble at anything. Last weekend I was out checking a camera, and on the main road, a siren started going off. It was like a fire truck or something. And a turkey just started gobbling up on the ridge from me at that fire truck. They'll gobble at car horns, they'll gobble at, you know, I've had a turkey gobble before where I slammed my car door really hard and gobble, 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 he gobbled up on the ridge in the woods. This was out at a piece of public nearby. So they will gobble at anything, but you don't want to make them gobble at anything. You don't want to get in the habit of like honking your car horn, because that's going to let them know, hey, something's up. That's not natural. That's not normal. And that's where different types of animal calls come into play. And like I said, a crow call, I'll play it for you. This is how I play it when I'm trying to get a turkey to gobble. Not necessarily if I was trying to call in crows, I would play it like this, but this is loud, short, quick, and get a bird to gobble at it. Just 3 really quick, ka, ka, ka. And a lot of times you'll get a bird to respond to that. The next one I want to talk about is probably the most famous locator call of all time, and that is the barred owl hoot. And this is my barred owl hooter. This is by Hook's Custom Calls. Just so you know, this crow call I think is from Hook's Custom Calls as well. The diaphragms I'm using are from Hook's Custom Calls. I'm not sponsored by them, I just really like their stuff. But this is the barred owl call that I use. Barred owl calls are really useful those times of the day when you're trying to get a bird to gobble before you want to actually use a turkey call on them. So this will be really early in the morning while they're still up in the roost before they fly down, or in the evening after they've gotten up in the roost. So I'll blow this real quick. I'll show you how it sounds. With an owl hooter and barred owls, you know, with all bird sounds, they have these like sayings that you can say that help you with the cadence of that call. And for a barred owl, you want to say, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" And that's, if you've ever heard a barred owl, they hoo 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 hoo. And that's what this call will emulate. So you want to think about that saying while you're doing it. And that's my barred owl call. So I've gotten a lot of birds to respond to this in the mornings before they fly down, and I've roosted a lot of birds, put a lot of birds to bed with this call, morning and evenings, or when I would stick to a barred owl call. Pretty sweet. There's all kinds of different barred calls, hoot flutes, a bunch of different companies make them like this. They're all good, they all will work, they'll all get a bird to gobble. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to be as realistic as possible. You just don't want to tip that bird off that something's weird, but you also want to, you know, get him to gobble at it. And a lot of times it takes a little higher pitched or more energetic sound, I guess, than naturally the bird would make to get him to gobble. So I like to blow this pretty hard and pretty like loud. And a lot of times you'll hear that gobble right after that last trill. Barred owl call, definitely a staple. I would have one of these in your vest. The last one I want to talk about here is a call that I like to use a lot midday or in the middle of the day, especially when I'm hunting like really pressured birds. The crow call and the owl call, I will say, everybody who's a turkey hunter has them, and they blow on them all the time, and the birds hear them all the time. And a lot of times I think they can become tone deaf to these calls, and they don't really work like they would if you were hunting private land where you know, the birds aren't pressured. So a lot of times I like to carry a call in my vest that is not very common, and that would be this. This is a pileated woodpecker call or a hawk scream. You can do both with it, but it's a sound that, you know, you hear in the woods a lot. I hear pileated woodpeckers a lot, and I hear hawks call a lot, but you don't hear a lot of hunters using these. I would definitely recommend carrying something like this just as a, you know, an ace in the hole or an extra extra call just in case, you know, you might want to use it. It might work for you. But it's a really loud, shrill, like staccato, high-pitched call, which is what I like when it comes to locator calls. So that's going to get their attention. That's going to get them to shot gobble. But I'll blow the pileated woodpecker here first. And that's really easy to do. It doesn't take much effort, believe it or not. You could probably learn how to do that in a day. I'm just blowing on it and using my tongue to stop the air right behind my lips and make that real quick noise. As you can see with a lot of these calls, you want to use like your hands to kind of cup and change the pitch and tone of the call. With the owl call as well, and the more you do it, the more you learn what sounds good and what doesn't. That's the pileated call. I'll do the hawk scream real quick too. And a lot of times that can get a gobble as well. And I'm sure that's just a red-tailed hawk. I'm sure you guys have heard red-tailed hawks scream like that. But that can definitely get a gobble for you. With that said, let's kind of go over some really common turkey calls that you're gonna want to be able to use. Turkeys make, you know, something like 25 to 50 or something different types of calls. Like they're a very vocal animal, and you know, it could take a lifetime to get good at learning how to make every type of call that a turkey makes. But I'm only going to show you a few that are really important for spring turkey hunting that you need to actually kill a bird. And the first one is probably the most common, and before you go out in the woods, you got to learn how to make this call, and that is a turkey yelp. The yelp is like the most common type of turkey call that you're going to be able to use to call in a gobbler in the spring. Yelps are usually used to, you know, as locating calls to call other gobblers, and depending on the intensity of the yelp, you know, or how fast the yelp is, they're saying different things. You know, there can be mad yelps, excited yelps, or locating yelps. I'll just give you kind of an example of a regular yelp I would use if I was calling to a bird. And a yelp's going to usually consist of like 7 to 10 different yelps in a row, and it's going to be most of the time at that kind of cadence. Yelp, 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 yelp. And I will give you this advice. It's really helpful to get online and actually look up YouTube videos of real turkeys making these sounds, because it's going to help you be a lot more accurate than listening to me make these calls. Listen to the real thing and listen to them in the wild when you're out there hunting, and try to replicate that. But yelps have that like higher pitch that drops down to a lower pitch. So yelp, yelp, yelp. If you can get that cadence and you can get that pitch, you're doing great. And I've killed so many birds using only a yelp. So that's a yelp with a pot call. And the way you're usually gonna make a yelp on a pot call is by moving your striker in little ovals. So if you guys can see this here, on the downward motion, you're gonna get noise. On the upward motion, you're not going to. And you're gonna wanna hold the striker kind of like you're holding a pencil, but you don't wanna hold it real tight, and you kind of want the neck of the striker to rest on that bone you got on your middle finger right here. And just kind of hold it in place with your thumb and your forefinger like so. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring it down and then up in a little circle, and then down and then up in a little circle, and then down and up in a little circle. And you're gonna kind of keep the striker at an angle. As you can see, I'm not straight down on the glass, I'm coming in at an angle. And what that does is allow you to get that nice yelp sound, you know, and then you can speed it up, slow it down. But that's going to be about the same for every type of slate call or pot call that you get, but that is a yelp on a pot call. Now, the yelp on the box call is pretty easy as well. All you're going to be doing, the way I do it, you can do it multiple different ways, but the way I do it is I'll hold the box call here with my hand, and you don't want to hold it real tight. You want to let it be able to vibrate and resonate and make its noise. And then you're just going to rub this paddle back and forth across the top of the box. Now with this one, you can do it. You can do it the other way, or left-handed. There's a lot of guys that run box calls upside down, in my opinion. I'm not very good at it. I run it like this, like I said. Just play with it. You'll get the noise at some point, but that's the box call, Yelp on the box call. And then with the diaphragm call, the Yelp is, I guess the best way to put it is once you get it in your mouth and get it situated, first thing you're gonna wanna do is just try to make a sound. So you get back there. And if you can get that sound, you're well on your way. Now all that you need to do is learn how to say like the turkey sounds. Yelp, 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 yelp. And be able to cut that air off going over the reed at the right cadence to give you the proper sound. So there's your Yelp on the diaphragm call. All right, hopefully this ain't too confusing. We'll go back to the pot call now, and we're gonna learn how to do a simple cluck. And a cluck is a sound that turkeys use for all sorts of different things. But usually it's like feeding or content, or they're talking to other hens or talking to gobblers. Clucks are usually just a single note that have like a really random cadence and you can add a couple of them or a bunch of them in a row, but you're gonna do it a lot more randomly than you would a Yelp. So on the pot call, you're gonna do a cluck just like you would a Yelp, but you're gonna do it a lot shorter. The way I do it on this pot call is like, you know, you'll hold it the same way you do a Yelp. You'll set it onto the glass the same way you do a Yelp. And you'll just kind of like pull. Oop, that was too much. You'll just kind of pull and you'll feel that pressure building up and you'll let it just kind of give way, you know, and run against the glass. And the more you play with it, the better you'll get at it. But that's a cluck. So you'll usually hear clucks intermingled with all kinds of different calls, but just a single. That is a cluck on a pot call. I'm gonna use this box cutter to kind of show you. It's got these thumb holes like we talked about earlier. I just place my thumb in there and it lets you rest the paddle against your thumb. So there's a cluck. Pretty easy to do on this. And with the diaphragm call, it's gonna be, like I said, kind of the same as a Yelp, just a lot shorter and more condensed and quick. Another call that I like to use a lot, especially when turkeys are in close, is purring. A turkey purr it's not too difficult to do, especially on like a pot call. It's actually pretty easy in my opinion. It's the box call that I can't do a purr on at all, and I kind of struggle a little bit with the diaphragm calls. But if you can learn it on a pot call and you can learn it on a diaphragm call, you're gonna be really prepared for those instances when that bird is within, 30, 40 yards and you're just trying to get him to move a little closer for a clear shot, give him a couple purrs, and he might walk right in. So let's look at my glass call again. I'll show you a purr. And on this pot call, all I'm doing, I'll show you right here. All I'm doing is holding the striker the same way I would do if I'm holding it for a Yelp or a cluck, but I'm gonna move it across the surface, perpendicular to the scratch marks, kind of at a slow, even pace with an even amount of pressure. That's another thing I will say is depending on where you're at on the slate, you're gonna get different tones as well. You can see in the middle here, compared to the edge, is a lot higher pitched. That's a purr on a pot call. And then with a diaphragm call, I know there's several ways to do it. The way that I do it is by rolling my tongue. So, like I said, I'm not too great with a purr on the diaphragm call. There's definitely guys out there that are super good at it. This is not the best call to be using to make a purr as well. Some of them that need a lot less air is what I would be looking for, as opposed to this like offset bat wing, which is going to be more of like a raspy, loud, yelping kind of call. All right, and the last type of call, the last turkey call I want to talk about is cutting. And turkey cuts are probably one of my favorite type of calls. If you want to get a bird really fired up and you can tell he's really in the mood, giving him a couple cuts is definitely going to get him fired up and get him coming in, hopefully. And what cutting is like take a cluck and add a bunch of them and get really high pitched and really quick with them. And it's kind of an excited hen call that is really good for getting birds to gobble and getting birds to respond and fire them up. With the pot call, cutting is going to be the same as like a cut, except you're just going to do it really fast and really kind of like variable and random, if that makes sense. But that's cutting on a pot call. Like I said, it's just like a cluck, a single cluck, except you're gonna do a bunch of them. So on the box call here, same kind of thing as the cluck. I don't really like the way that one sounds, but you kind of get the picture. In the mouth call is gonna be a little harder, but I'll kind of do my best here and show you how it sounds. It's gonna be just like the cluck, except you're gonna have to use a lot more air and be a lot quicker with it. So. So there's some cuts with the diaphragm call. So we kind of went over the 4 main turkey calls that I would ever use, that I use in the woods every time I go. I don't really ever stray or use more than those turkey calls when I'm actually hunting. I like to keep it simple. The birds don't seem to know the difference. So, but what happens is the better you get at all these individual calls and learning what gobblers are looking for and what they're gonna respond to, especially on that specific day or in that specific circumstance, the better you'll get at combining all of those and give you a huge range or repertoire of noises and turkey sounds that you can make and kind of keep it fresh all the time, if that makes sense. So just going back to the pot call. So a lot of times what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix all those calls together to make it sound as realistic as possible, because very rarely is a hen gonna just, sit in the woods and cluck all day and not make any other noises. So you can do stuff like this. This is a really common one I do all the time. Do a couple yelps. And then do some cuts that lead into a yelp. That's a really good one that will get birds to gobble all the time. Or purring and mixing in some clucks is a good one. There's all kinds of different variations and ways to mix all these calls together that are gonna help you sound more realistic. If you're just out there all day just yelping and that's all you're doing, you're not going to sound as realistic as if you mix all these calls in there. And then the other layer to put on top of all this is your volume. Turkey calling volume is a big one. I hear a lot of hunters on public land all the time just like screaming with their turkey calls. And if you've ever been in the woods and actually listened to real hens, in nature, they're not very loud. They're calling a lot and they're calling all day long and they're talking to each other, but they're not screaming so you can hear them 3 ridges away, And really pressured birds that are getting hunted a lot are gonna kind of recognize that and see that as something fishy, in my opinion. I want to sound as realistic as possible, and that includes watching your volume. There are times to be loud, there are times not to be loud. So if you're up on a ridge and it's a really windy day and you have no idea where there are birds, you know, maybe start out calling softer and work your way up to calling really loud to see if you can get a bird to gobble. If you got a bird roosted, you know, 80 yards from you in the morning, you're not gonna wanna, you know, at the crack of dawn just start screaming at him. He's gonna be like, what the heck? I'm not even awake yet, you know? So you wanna make sure, you know, there's another type of yelp, it's called a tree yelp, which is just a soft yelp that hens usually will give before they fly down. And, you know, it's just gonna be like a a real quiet, soft yelp, just to let that gobbler know that you're there. They can hear very well, and you know, that's what they've evolved over millions of years to do, and that's why they're so vocal. Their hearing is so good to match that. Make sure you're not blowing their eardrums, screaming at them, but you also want to make sure you're not too quiet. A lot of times if a bird is 80, 100 yards away, and you're gonna sit there purring at him and you're on the other side of a ridge or something, he might not hear you. That might be a time to get a little louder. But with that said, without getting into too much depth, that is kind of turkey calling in a nutshell. I gave you 4 different calls to learn: the yelp, the cluck, purring, and then cutting. Go buy yourself a couple different calls, try to practice them, try to get good at them. If you have any questions on how to do it, or maybe you can't figure it out, put them in the comments, let me know. But with that said, I really hope this helped you guys. I hope you guys are liking this series. Put it down in the comments if you are. I enjoy making these. I enjoy helping out new hunters. If you have any questions, if there's anything I wasn't clear on, please put those down in the comments as well. Make sure you hit the like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that. And hit the notification bell too if you want to be updated every time I have a new video coming up. I will have a new video patterning your shotgun coming up here in the next couple days. So stay tuned and keep a lookout for that one. And with that said, thank you again. Really appreciate you guys watching and tuning into the channel. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next one.